Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhi No Bhavantu. May all beings be happy and peaceful. May all of my viewers and students be guided and prosperous and lead healthy, happy, harmonious lives. May infinite intelligence govern and watch over all of your trades and investments. Welcome to my channel, everyone. My name is Phoenix, and we are going to talk crypto today. Before I dive into the charts and express my own personal views, I will remind you that none of this is financial advice. If you're interested in learning more about my content, you can check out my website, linked to down in the description below. I have lots of courses in the Small Cap Superstars report, of course. So let's dive in. I'm not doing a live today because I want to keep it as brief as possible. Also, it's a holiday. It's a stock holiday, at least. Of course, the crypto markets never close. Here we are with the Dixie, and fundamentally speaking, the Dixie still looks bullish, right? On the daily chart, it has bounced off of this weekly level of support. And of course, it's in between these two weekly levels now. But we've broken this diagonal and clearly broken through this weekly level of resistance. And so I'm expecting the Dixie to come back up to 104s, 105s in the coming weeks. Before potentially dipping back down again, and then maybe making another leg up from there. But overall, this looks bullish, right? The S&P 500, on the other hand, I'm not going to say that it looks bearish, but it did actually, you can see a short position that I have open there. I'm trying to delete that. It did come back below this range here, and this was actually the short trigger for me. This daily candle right here, the rejection at the range low. And of course, you can see the close beneath that. Now, there is a trend in the stock market. Usually if Thursday can't get higher than the Thursday high, then Monday is going to dip down at minimum to the Friday low. And that's a trend that I've actually charted, back tested, and in 2022, it was accurate. I think it was 84% of the time. So I'm anticipating more downside with the S&P 500. Now, does that mean that Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to dip down from here? Not necessarily. And we have to, I want to be as neutral as possible in this because I've been thinking more and more in terms of the max pain scenario for Bitcoin. What would it be? In this case, it seems like this is obvious resistance, and we've seen, you can see on the daily all of these wicks, and this happened last time here as well before it really dropped down from here. But now, what would be the max pain scenario? It seems to me that psychologically speaking, and let's face it, this is one big psyops that we're dealing with right now. It would be actually, in fact, to bring it above 25K for a period of time and to get the bulls really excited here and to get retail really feeling the FOMO, maybe even potentially could bring it all the way up to 26,800 here, okay? Somewhere between 25, 26K, you never know. Deviation, then back inside, okay? In that case, that's a massive short trigger for Bitcoin, okay? Because then we've deviated above this entire range here, and you could see same sort of scenario. It's almost happening on a smaller or a lower time frame. It just happened actually. So we can see here was a deviation on the higher time frame, got back inside, went all the way to the top. Usually actually does, according to what I've seen in over the last few years at least, it's come back above and it usually gets slightly higher. And so actually I wouldn't be surprised to see it come up tomorrow or maybe on Wednesday and really make another push up here, and then sort of hover here and start to show some weakness and then break down back inside the range here. And then we're looking to head all the way at least to the mid of this range. Okay, so that's something to be prepared for. And does it seem all that unlikely when what we just saw on the 4H, you can see actually we had the deviation here, okay, got back inside, pushed up slightly higher, and then back inside here. Now it's sort of hovering. But the reason that I would actually be leaning more towards the scenario that I just showed you is because I believe that while we are seemingly holding above this range high here, okay, and you can see this this wick here on the 4H. Now, initially, I mentioned last week, we had this 4H 𝐜𝐨𝐥𝐥𝐸 candle. Nice little fake out there, but failed to follow through and then back above again. Now, if you just ignore all of these wicks here, until we have evidence to the contrary, this is still in a short-term uptrend. So until we start to see this really break down here and actually get back below, and I would say to be on the safe side, back below the January, actually this is the open here, I believe, the monthly open, or no, this is the January high, sorry. So back below the January high and then start to break down, then I would say, okay, then it's looking like more downside here. And it's a little tricky if you just pay attention to the alts, because the alts are actually starting to show some initial weakness, at least most of them. Some of them are still really pumping right now. But that's why I just want to bring the focus mainly to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So the two scenarios that we're looking for here is the A scenario, which I just showed you, and I'd be looking, I have some alerts set here. I'm going to show you exactly where it is. It's around 25K. Because if we drop down and we take a look here, this is the high of this range here that we're in. We're in this range around 25.75, I would say, is the range high. I usually like to set my alerts a little bit lower, because what happens if it pushes through with some momentum, say we get a 15-minute candle that really pushes through here, it's a Marubozu, kind of like what we see here, but it's placed here and it actually does break above here. Then that would be potentially a long trigger for the bold and the brave for Bitcoin. And then what would be the target for that? Well, we have to really go back here to see. It's kind of a clear blue sky here until this 26.8, 26.900. So I'd be targeting probably somewhere in the mid of that range initially. And whatever that happens to be, that's probably around 26K. Just beneath that would be my first target, and then I'd probably target 26,900. So that's sort of the plan. If it does break out to the upside, and I would take a smaller position on that only because we've seen so much upside already, and it could reverse at any moment. So that would be the long scenario for Bitcoin. And I'd be wary if it started to get, well, who knows? I mean, it could break all the way out and go all the way up to 28, 29K. But that's just the initially we need to see some momentum to the upside here. And this does look actually like a breakout buildup, what we're seeing here. And that would actually coincide with the Max Pain scenario. So that's the long scenario. The short scenario would be breakdown beneath the January high, which is 24, just beneath 24K. And show some weakness there. There's your short trigger, and then headed back down. Actually, I just want to check on this to make sure now, because I could be wrong. I have two gray lines and I'm confusing myself. Yep, that's the January high. Okay, this is the February open here. Okay, so I have to sort of color code my chart a little bit differently here. If we look, well, it's not giving us much on the daily here. We don't have resolution, and we will likely see some resolution probably tomorrow or Wednesday when the stock market kicks back in a full swing. But even if the S&P really comes down tomorrow, it doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin's going to. As we've seen, it hasn't been as closely correlated these last few weeks. So I'm not relying so much on that. Now, as for Ethereum, let's just look at ETH BTC and see which one. Again, ETH is still beneath that mid-range, okay? The mid of this larger range here. And so I'm anticipating that I'd say more weight to the downside, that Ethereum really breaks down harder and faster than Bitcoin when it all tops out. If it tops out, okay? Then I would expect, okay, Ethereum probably going to come down. So I would be targeting Ethereum as opposed to Bitcoin. I'm just laying out my strategy. This is not financial advice. Again, I'm giving you as much information as I possibly can. Hopefully it will help you to profit. So with Ethereum, same sort of scenario here with Ethereum, but in this case, we want to see it break above this level, this 1727, with some conviction, a strong 15-minute candle. The reason I keep saying this 15-minute candle is because if you go back and you look in the charts and just see periods where the price really consolidated, then we had a big, strong 15-minute candle. This was CPI here, but it came back, retested this area here, and then held, okay? So that was sort of the initial trigger, but then again, we had another 15-minute candle, broke this whole range, and these are all little teeny tiny 15-minute candles, and then all of a sudden, one big strong one, even though there's a slight wick there, still strong enough for a long trigger. And so if we get a bunch of teeny tiny 15-minute candles here again, and then all of a sudden it just breaks out to the upside, breaks clear above this level, I would say that's a long trigger. For me, at least, that's a long trigger. Now, so 1727, watching that level, setting an alert there just beneath it, and then after it breaks above, where are we targeting? Then we have to zoom out and we have to see, okay, what are we looking at? I'd be targeting up 1784, maybe just beneath that, and then eventually, potentially 1860. Those would be my targets. And maybe one in the middle there, around 1829. Okay, so that would be a long scenario. Again, smaller size for me. If that did happen, that would coincide with the max pain. That's a long scenario. The short scenario would be back below January high, which is also this range high here. Okay, get back inside this range, and this just proves to be a deviation here. This is just a deviation like we saw here, in which case I would say, okay, so here we break down, here's your short trigger, and then targeting at minimum 1585, conservative target, and then 1490. Maybe it continues to chop around in this range. Ultimately, it could break down much lower than that. Okay, so that's the short trigger. So these are the key levels: 1665 or 1665 to 1675, and then we've got 1730 for the potential long breakout. And so as for the alts, I'm sort of just on pause with alts because they could be all over the place, realistically speaking, while this is playing out. And even though a lot of them seem like they're wanting to top out, Litecoin, for instance, Litecoin usually leads the pack with the altcoins. And Litecoin, you could see it entered this range here. Consider taking a short here. Actually, just missed this, wasn't really paying close attention, but you can see the breakdown and then the retest. Okay, you have the sumo shot up, miffed off, and now it's breaking down. Now it's at the mid, could come all the way back down, but then come tomorrow or later today, maybe we see a strong breakout with Ethereum and Bitcoin. Litecoin's probably headed all the way back up to the top of this range. So I'm just not playing around with the alts right now because there's no resolution for the majors. Now with Solana had a really strong move up. Was it today, yesterday? I mean, it's up almost 6% right now. Looks like it's kind of topping out. Looks like an obvious short. The obvious play is not really the play that I want to take right now because there's a lot of trickery in crypto, okay? And so if we take a look and see, let's just see if there's any other levels that maybe Solana could target, okay? So it already we had that swing fail pattern initially, but it could come up again. There's nothing stopping Solana from coming up and maybe testing this level here, this 2789, okay? There's nothing stopping it from even going even higher. And then maybe it holds above for a while and then deviates back inside. Now I'm interested, okay? Right here, I'm not interested. This is the first test. And so there's a lot of people likely going short here, and Solana could just sort of hover here. And then if Ethereum really breaks out, Solana is going to continue north. In that case, now I'm interested in Solana. But at this level, it's fine. I'm going to leave it. And if it does drop back down from here, no big deal, because there's always other opportunities in the markets. But Solana is now of interest to me where it wasn't for many weeks because it reached the range high. Okay, so now I'm looking for the deviation. I'm looking for maybe another swing fail pattern. And then I'll look to short it down. But I'm not going to short anything until I see weakness from Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we don't have that yet. Okay, so we have to be willing and able to play both sides. Optimism, it's same sort of deal. If you look at a lot of these alts, it looks like they want to head south because we have this lower high here. And you see this across all the alts, but there's nothing stopping optimism from pushing up at minimum all the way back up to 285, back into this range again. There's nothing stopping an altcoin like Optimism or Aptos or Phantom from coming all the way back up to the top of this previous range and maybe even putting in a slightly new high, okay? And that's maximum pain. And here's where all the longs are getting really super confident, and then it's back inside, and then it comes all the way back down again, okay? So just being prepared, and if I were trading this, which I did trade, I did have a profitable trade on this morning, which there was an entry here after the retest, kind of got a little lucky because this was a limit order that I placed and then broke down, took profits here, might just sort of hover around in this range again. But you can see if you want to take a trade on something like this, then look for something like this, where you have this, let me just mark this, you have this level here, okay, and you have the swing fail, okay, on a lower time frame, and then the breakdown, and then there's a quick short to the bottom of the range. Maybe that's the first to take profit, something like that. But this is more like a scalper's market here. And I think that swing traders are going to get really chopped up trying to position themselves in a major way right now. So that's just my 2 cents. Phantom is the same deal. Like, there's nothing stopping Phantom from pushing all the way back up. Of course, it could just continue to break down, but there's nothing stopping it from really coming back inside and pushing all the way back up here again. Nothing keeping it from that. And especially, again, if Bitcoin and Ethereum continue to show relative strength, which Ethereum right now is hovering at 1700. So I would not be surprised to see it try to make one more push up and push even higher. And that would really confuse a lot of traders. So it's all about confusion and distraction and just reading the lines. And I'm just trading the levels. Realistically, we're just trading the levels, and it's okay to be more aggressive and snatching profits sooner. And it's okay if it keeps moving without you. That's not a big deal. My strategy is sort of to try to let at least 20-25% of that trade ride no matter what until I'm stopped out. And that way, if I at least have some skin in the game, if it does happen to be that massive breakdown that we've been waiting for, or that massive breakout, then you still have some in the trade, and you don't feel so bad, and you don't feel that FOMO impulse as much. So I hope that you all found this video helpful and inspirational. And again, just be careful out there right now, because it's a very confusing market, and it's not really coinciding with what's happening in the world, with reality and with the macro, which I'm just not even going to go into that. But yeah, again, have a beautiful rest of your day.